The injury to Liv Morgan changes some WWE plans, a rumor killer on Britt Baker joining WWE, my review of NXT, and more. I'm Luke Owen and this is the WrestleTalk News.
Support WrestleTalk!
Before Joe Hendry did his little face turn thing, and before Mr. Iguana had an iguana, we used to respect someone else around these parts, and I am of course talking about the patron saint of WrestleTalk, Scott Steiner. The man behind the greatest promo of all time, we ran several polls and I won several games of WWE 2K24 to prove that, is so great he can even make it worthwhile going back onto Twitter. Case in point, his recent post includes saying any show that he was on was the best WCW show of all time and asking, let me guess, your day was boring as hell because Big Papa Pump wasn't on here to entertain you. But he was also clearly watching this week's Raw, as he mentioned his nephew Bron Breakker throwing Sami Zayn around, which also meant he saw Stephanie Vaquer attempt to advance in the fourth of four Fatal 4-Ways in the first round of the Queen of the Ring tournament. How do we know this? Well, Scott Steiner tweeted, "Just saw this devil's kiss move. Seems like something the big bad booty daddy would have done. Just not in the ring, if you know what I mean." And if you don't know what he means, I won't explain it here on this family show. But given that it's Scott Steiner, let me tell you, it will probably involve your mum. Hard for me to segue out of that story, so I'll just calmly instead say that Liv Morgan unfortunately suffered an injury during this past Monday's Raw. Probably shouldn't have made that mum joke before this bit of the script. Morgan dislocated her shoulder very early on during a match with Kairi Sane when she landed awkwardly taking a front bump before rolling to the outside. The match was called off during the commercial break. Despite oddly, some people trying to think that this was all a work, PW Insider report that it was 100% legitimate and is being considered a freak accident with no heat on Kairi Sane. As for how long Morgan will be out, it's all down to the severity of the dislocation, but PW Insider note that if it's really bad, it could be upwards of 16 weeks. Even if it's not at its worst, it's likely that Morgan will be missing the July weekend of shows, which probably would have seen her face Io Sky for the Women's Championship at Saturday night's main event and face Nikki Bella at Evolution, possibly defending her tag titles against the Bella Twins. And according to Brian Alvarez, he believes that an angle with Nikki Bella planned for Raw was scrapped following Morgan's injury. Now, Alvarez doesn't have the greatest track record of backstage scoops and news, but this wasn't a report, it was just speculation, and probably one with some merit. Morgan noted at the top of the show that Nikki wasn't at Raw this week, but Nikki herself was announced for the show and promoted on social media the fact that she was in Green Bay for Raw. It had also previously been reported that Nikki was going to be at all of the Raws leading into Evolution to build the show. Nikki Bella was clearly set to be a big focal point for Evolution, so what do you think she'll do next? We had a suggestion on yesterday's WrestleTalk podcast that Roxanne Perez could fill in for Morgan defending the tag titles against the Bellas, as that would further the Judgment Day drama, but what would you like to see? Let me know in the comments. Speaking of things that aren't going to happen, and apparently rumors of Britt Baker's imminent joining of WWE have been greatly exaggerated. Over the last 24 hours, there's been a lot of speculation online that Britt Baker was done with All Elite Wrestling and will soon be signing with WWE. Seems like a wild thing to just come out of nowhere. It's almost as if it came from a guy on a podcast that often just says stuff that is often disproved. Anyway, Jonathan Coachman said on his podcast, "I just found out there's a name, a female name, out there that is close to signing with WWE." When his co-host guessed that it was Britt Baker, Coachman replied, "Ding, ding, ding, ding. Gone from AEW. She is ready. She's so ready. She's got the built-in storyline and she got buried because she pushed back. She spoke up about what was going on, and in wrestling, you know you can't do that." Baker last wrestled for AEW on the 13th of November 2024 when she beat Penelope Ford, and her future with the company has been speculated on for the last few months. But according to Fightful Select, Mr. Coachman might have jumped the gun or has been fed some bad info, as Sean Ross Sapp writes, "To be clear, Britt Baker is under contract to AEW, has not left AEW, and signed a 5-year contract in late 2021 that would keep her under contract for well over another year, not including possible injury time added." Not only that, but he also spoke with WWE sources who noted that while she is welcome to come to WWE shows, they have not discussed her coming to WWE in recent years. He also adds that he's not heard if there's any creative plans for her in AEW either. If she was able to get out of her deal, would you like to see Britt Baker in WWE? Let me know in the comments. And that bit of news was actually quite timely, as the most recent episode of NXT was all built around an AEW name joining WWE. So it's Wednesday, you know what that means. It's time for my review of NXT. in about 5 minutes. The show wasn't just built around Blake Monroe, it was also finding out who Jacy Jayne will face for the NXT Championship at Evolution, as Eva made 4 qualifying matches to lead to a fatal 4-way to crown a new #1 contender, that's Number Wang. The first of these 4 matches was Jada Parker beating Thea Hale, which got started before the bell and was solid throughout and featured a rather wacky finish. Hale locked in the Kimura and Parker tapped, but she did so gently on Hale's thigh away from the sight of the referee. So when Hale let go, expecting the match to be over, the referee looked at her confused. Parker then hit her finish for the win. I'm honestly not sure how I feel about this as a finish. It's certainly creative, but it can make people look a bit dim. I don't know if I liked it or loathed it, but it sure was wacky. They teased another match between Obafemi and Trick Williams down the line, and we got a vignette for Blake Monroe coming to NXT to sign her contract complete with 50s Hollywood music behind it. Like, it is not a complete copy of Timeless Toni Storm like some people are claiming, but I can see why some are accusing it of being so. Kalani Jordan took on Lash Legend in a fine match which Legend won to advance to next week's Fatal 4-Way, and then we got all the D'Angelo family drama. It started with a video recap of the story so far, then Tony telling Luca Crucifino that he'll see him in the ring after Luca got off the phone, and then Tony in the ring to call out Luca Crucifino to ask if he's working with Stax. The two went back and forth before Stax came out to call Tony pathetic, and a brawl broke out with Luca accidentally hitting D'Angelo. Or was it an accident? It doesn't really matter. The idea of the segment was to get over and remind the audience that Luca Crucifino's role in the family was to be the consigliere. They said it enough times so that when Ava revealed later in the show that Stax is getting a shot at Noam Dar for the Heritage Cup, she said he was able to get that match through his consigliere. I'll be honest, Ava, you could have avoided all of this drama by just telling Tony who the consigliere is. And this is probably the most I've ever said the word consigliere in any WrestleTalk news video in the 10 years I've been the host on this channel. But the thing that surprised me the most wasn't the amount of times I wrote the words consigliere in my notes, it was how little heat this got from the NXT crowd. It just sort of feels like a holdover from the 2.0 era. Speaking of which, Andre Chase tried to introduce new students in a fun video but kept shutting down their question attempts, leading to them walking out, and it was announced that, like Looney Tunes in 2003, Ricky Starks will be back in action next week. A match was made between Javon Evans and Tyvon Heights, where Heights can leave no quarter catch crew if he wins, and Evans chatted with Jasper Troy, and yes, I did call him Casper Troy 2 weeks ago because my mild dyslexia means I can sometimes get my words mixed up when reading them off the teleprompter. Either that, or I was just thinking about the lead actor from Starship Troopers and the lead character from High School Musical. To be honest with me, it really could go either way. Elijah teamed with Josh Briggs and Inamura to beat Trick Williams, who teamed with AJ Francis, and Wes Lee, who filled in for the injured Casey Navarro. Francis trolled the audience by teasing his botched dive, but the match only really kicked into gear when the long heat spot on Inamura was over. But for me, the final stretch wasn't long enough to make up for the long working over of the babyface. Inamura won with a splash on Trick, but in a backstage segment handed his TNA title shot to his friend Briggs because he wanted a shot against Femi instead. Izzy Dane beat Zarya when Tatum Paxley caused a distraction when she hugged Sol Ruka at ringside. Commentary spent most of the match arguing if Zarya and Ruka are actually friends. The main event match was the fourth of 4 singles matches to qualify for the Fatal 4-Way, as Jordan Grace had a really good match with Lola Vice. And it actually looked like Vice was going to get the win off an awesome looking kick, and the crowd were genuinely shocked when Grace kicked out, but then she hit beast mode to win and advance. Grace looked great and Vice looked strong in defeat, so this was a big win overall. What wasn't a win though was Jordan Grace's music getting Def Rebelled, as she now comes out to generic rock track number 54. They cannot keep getting away with this. If it came out that Def Rebel weren't actually people and just an AI program, I would not be surprised in the least. If anything, it would actually explain a lot. And the main event saw the contract signing for Blake Monroe, who came out with her new theme that is as bland as all the others, and cut a babyface promo about how she's always wanted to sign with WWE. She had some Tonyisms in there, in that she said she wanted to get into bed with all of the women on the NXT roster, but again, I don't think you can really argue that this is a full-on Control-C, Control-V situation. It will also take a little while for me to readjust my eyes, as I still see Mariah May as a heel, but Blake Monroe is 100% faithful, as Fatal Influence came out to cut a promo on her and Ava for never giving them this sort of grand spectacle. A brawl broke out, but the numbers game was too much for Blake as the baddies put her through a table, which nicely sets up Blake Monroe versus Jacy Jayne for the NXT Women's Championship down the line. but also makes the 4 matches on this show and next week's #1 contender 4-way mean very little, as we know whoever wins isn't winning at Evolution. Overall, it was another fine edition of NXT. It's not been quite hitting the heights as it was earlier this year, but it's still worth checking out. Now, speaking of checking things out, go and check out the most recent episode of the Monday Night War, where I got caught off guard by a little change in the game mechanics of Kairi Sane turning babyface to heel, and then I just wasted a promo segment doing something that had already been done for me. You can go and laugh, click the video, leave a comment, tell me how wrong I am. I already know.